Welcome to the News OK Varsity Podcast. Thank you for joining us. I'm Scott Wright, sports writer, high school sports at the Oklahoman, joined by Jacob Unruh, Trent Shaded. Appreciate you joining us. Second round of the playoffs coming up, but let's take a quick look back at round one, which was all kinds of interesting. Had a few big upsets and a few other minor upsets along the way. Jacob, you were live for one of the bigger surprises, I think, of the first round. Maybe not the biggest upset, but just the way that it all came down with Del City getting the late 2-point conversion rather than trying to take their chances with an extra point or in overtime. And now I don't know what kind of kicker Del City has this year, but I've been to some games, some past Del City games where I probably would have went for two in their situation too. And I know Nick Wareheim, and that's how he thinks. So, but talk a little bit about that ball game.
Well, it got off to a really rough start for Deer Creek to begin with Davion Freeman taking the opening kickoff back for a touchdown, and it was kind of at that moment you think, Del City's not going to mess around here. They're gonna try to hang around, and Deer Creek looked stunned automatically, and they really just never got in sync. And I give the credit to Del City's defense. They've kind of been under fire all season. They've given up a lot of points, a lot of passing yards here and there. But they really limited Clayton Sims and what he could do in the passing game. They covered receivers well. They pressured him and forced him into some bad throws. And then they just turned it over on offense to Terry Wilson, who played up to his potential, I think. He threw the ball well. He ran the ball well, made smart decisions. A couple fumbles that could have went to him, kind of on snap issues, kind of on him, kind of a toss-up, coin toss in stats if you want to give it to him or not on some of them. But the final drive was a short field. Kobe takes the kickoff back to the 33 and give him a short field with less than 2 minutes left, and so it was a matter of time before Wilson was able to drive him in. And credit to Wareheim. Wareheim said he had his mind made up 2 drives before that if they were tying the game, had a chance to tie the game, they were going for 2 instead. And I think it is because their kicker made extra points during the game, but he just doesn't look like a solid kicker that's someone you'd want to go to overtime with against Deer Creek when they have Parker Noble, who's a pretty decent kicker, and had just made a kick beyond 40 yards in that game. But it was definitely an exciting night after watching Carl Albert nearly upset MacArthur the night before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had a heck of a weekend, and you talked about Terry Wilson, and he's a guy that we were looking at early in the season, and then they had kind of hit some rough patches and faded off the radar a little bit. But as we get into the point that we start talking about the Super 30 for 2016, he's a guy that's going to be right there at the top, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he has to be. When you look at the junior quarterbacks across the state, him, Keaton Torrey, Chandler Garrett, Scotty Gilkey Jr. out of Broken Arrow, guys like that, he stands out. He's got a little bit bigger frame than those guys, but he can run and he throws the ball extremely well. If you watch him in warm-ups and you watch him in the game, it's very comparable. His throws look very effortless. They go far. There's a tight spiral. There's a lot of power behind him. Knows what he's doing, and he's got a good head on him. I was really impressed talking with him after the game. He seems like a really good kid and fun to talk with. Knew what he was talking about, and I think that's going to carry him further than some.
Yeah, it's funny talking to Nick Wareheim about the recruiting process, and one of the things that he points to with Terry is he can have a conversation with an adult, and that's not always the case as you get into the recruiting process with some of these kids. Now, Trent, we were in here last week, and you were talking about an interesting first round matchup that you were kind of fired up about was Clinton at Hara, and the way things had gone for Clinton this year, I really didn't give them much of a chance to go out there. Hara had been playing really well, but Clinton didn't mess around, did they?
No, not only did they win, but they put 41 points on them, win kind of comfortably, 41-26.
Yeah,
it's the playoffs, and it's Clinton. They come in at 5-5. They're fourth in their district, but you look at the district, all 4 teams won. It's the only district in the state, 4A1, with all 4 teams to advance. And you know what? There's a chance that all 4 of those teams could end up in the semifinals. Wouldn't be, crazy to see all 4 of those teams win. So, they come through a tough district. They had a rough patch early, but they had a rough early schedule. And with the coaching change from Lee to Coons, maybe people just weren't as fired up early in the season, but when they had to, hey, we've got to start winning these games. We've got to figure it out. We've got Division I running back in Simpkins, and they finally turn it around. They're winning some games that went on the road against Terra. Shows that they can beat maybe anybody outside of Anadarko. I'm not saying anyone can beat Anadarko, even as banged up as they are, but they've got a shot.
Yeah, and it feels eerily similar, though quite different in a way, but eerily similar to Carl Albert a couple of years ago, a team that everybody had kind of written off by the time we got to the playoffs, and they come in and go and get hot at the right time and start playing together and playing some football. And I mean, Coons knows how to coach in big games, so we'll see what he can do this week. They got Oologah coming to town, and Oologah is obviously, I mean, they had a big win in the first round, but they're dealing with some controversy with their forfeits that we found out about last week, and so we'll see what happens there. But 4 really intriguing matchups in Class 4A. I included Anadarko and Metro Christian in my top 10 games of the week just because of Metro Christian's ability to attack that secondary that's a little bit banged up for Anadarko. I think Newcastle Fort Gibson is one of the most exciting matchups of the round of this week. But a lot of crazy stuff. We had a couple of upsets in 3A. Bethany goes down against Cushing, which was an unexpected loss there. I didn't see that one coming. Impressive performance by Cushing. I was up at Broken Arrow for Mustangs win up there, which was an upset in some term, but I mean you never really felt that Broken Arrow was going to win that game. It felt like from the start that Mustang was the better team, and they had a couple of mistakes that led to some points, but you really sensed early on that was Mustang's game to win. Going to be really curious to see how it goes against Union this week. Maybe was Union overlooking them last time when they came down here a couple of weeks ago, and were trailing Mustang in the fourth quarter. Ultimately won that game 30-24. Were they overlooking them? Were they focused? That was the game that Mason Farquhar got hurt, and the backup came in and actually played really well. It was funny talking to Mustang people because they had no idea that Farquhar got hurt that night. They thought he got benched because they were getting beat, and the backup actually played really well, and then led them to a victory the next week. But Farquhar came back last week for the playoffs. They didn't have any trouble with Edmond Memorial. Put 70, 80 points up in the first 4 minutes or something ridiculous. It was crazy the way they were scoring in that game.
Well, Scott, I kind of gotta put you on the spot with this though. So it was the first one, a 6-point game. Mustang, I'm not going to say they should have won, but they had every chance.
They should have.
To win that game,
They
right.
had some key turnovers late. They could have won that game very easily.
So fluke, or are we looking at a team in Mustang that can go up to Tulsa and beat Tulsa Union in the playoffs?
I think they can. I will pick Union to win this game, but I think it's going to be close. I think that this defense, it's complex enough that it keeps offenses off balance. They've got speed all over the field. They don't have big guys. They're not going to impress you when they walk off the bus. And when you see Union's offensive line lined up next to their defensive front, you think that Union should overpower them. You looked at Broken Arrow's line, you thought they should have too. And they had moments when they did. And Jamal Shaw is an incredible running back, by the way, at Broken Arrow.
Yes, he is.
I love that guy. But this defense is just they play their game. They fill gaps. They cause problems. They bring blitzes from unexpected places. They do a lot of things that are really tough to defend. And I think it gives them a shot. As long as they don't turn the ball over, which was their issue against Owasso, it was their issue against Union, it was their issue against Stillwater, and their only other loss this season. So, if they keep control of the ball, they get the run game going a little bit. That was the big thing in the second half that really turned the game around, was when they got the run game going. First it was Chase Brown a little bit, and then they started putting the ball in Chandler Garrett's hands, letting him run the ball, and he got it done. And when they get that part of their game going, it opens up the pass, and Chandler Garrett is good enough to pick people apart in a secondary whenever they're trying to stop the run. So I give them a shot. It's not going to surprise me if it ends up being a blowout. If Union has flipped that playoff switch that we hear about so often with the big school teams, that could entirely happen. It wouldn't surprise me, but I really think that Mustang has a shot to go up there and play a competitive game and be in it at the end.
Well, and not that the Mustang folks are upset that maybe we're not picking them, but because I know I'm not either.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of gotta give ourselves a cop out. We can't. We're not really allowed to pick against Jinx or Union until they lose, right?
I've said that for multiple years. I'm not going to
Mhm.
pick them in the preseason or in the at the beginning of the playoffs until somebody goes and beats them.
Yeah, there's logically in our heads we have to pick Jinx or Union, and that's what I'll pick this week too when we pick our games. Is you know what, it's going to be Jinx Union in 2 weeks is what I'm going to pick. But I'm with Scott. I think Mustang has a chance. I think Jinx might run over Owasso, but I think Mustang has the best chance to ruin another rematch.
I would say it'd be fun to see Mustang and whoever in the finals. It's always a
Yeah.
little bit more fun when it's Oklahoma City
Yeah.
area versus Tulsa area.
Oh yeah, it's always a blast up there. You know, I went into that game 2 years ago with Norman North thinking that they had the skill players to maybe make a run at it, and obviously didn't go that well. That was a lot better Jinx team, I think, than anybody we've got in the state this year. So we'll see what happens. But as you look at the second round, whether it's semifinals or quarterfinals or just the second round in the small school classes, what are some games that really stick out to you guys this week?
I have to start with Lawton and Tulsa, Washington.
Yeah.
It was our number 2 game, I think, on the top 10 list, and it's going to be an incredible game. I think you've got 2 teams that are big, physical, and athletic, and they match up extremely well with each other, and that's a game I really look forward to, along with games like Kingfisher, Seminole. OCS isn't going to have a pushover this week. You're going to get some teams right here that aren't going to have necessarily a pushover, but one other one that I'm going to write a story on later this week is CHA Davis. Christian Heritage has to go to Davis, and it's intriguing to me that CHA's defense comes in the season and you kind of wonder what they're going to be able to do on defense. And yet they've played really well. They've literally limited a lot of teams. They hung in there with OCS, a really good offensive team. Now they have their hands full with Davis on the road. So it's going to be interesting to see how that defense can handle that triple option and everything that they do with Blake Summers, and if they can keep him in the game to let Spencer Lindsay do some things at quarterback to try to win the game.
You know, home field advantage kind of gets glossed over a little bit. I mean, we all know it's important and that kind of thing, but it kind of gets glossed over a little bit, especially in high school playoffs. But Davis is a really tough place to play. Those are those fans stay behind their team, and even if you get a lead, they're not the type of fans that let things go. They stick with their team, and it's a really tough place to play. We've seen teams like Millwood go down there, and a couple of years ago had a 3 touchdown lead early in a I believe it was a quarterfinal game, might have been a semifinal game. I know it would have been a quarterfinal game if it was on a home field. So, but yeah, I believe they were up 22-0 if I remember right, and ended up losing 40-26, something like that.
Wow.
So, that wouldn't make any sense. 28 probably.
Right.
I got to stop doing math live radio. That's a bad idea. Trent, what sticks out to you this week, man?
Well, first of all, since we're talking about Davis, that game also sticks out to me, and several of them that Jacob mentioned. But Davis, when I went down there for a preseason story for our football preview, and talking to Coach Weber, he said he had a college recruiter come down one time. This may be within the last couple of years. Someone that had been there several times, and said, it's like there's a fence around this place, and nothing they're still running the triple option wishbone stuff, and nothing, none of the outside stuff gets in. And I feel like that's the way the community feels about itself, and like you're talking about the belief and just the winning, the expectations. So, it's a fun team to watch. It's heck, if you want to go watch a game, go to Davis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go check it out.
It's absolutely a blast down there. It was funny. I covered their season opener when they came up and played Vian at Choctaw, and I talked to Blake Summers after the game, and we were talking about a bunch of different things, and he said we didn't get to use our pistol. They were all everybody was excited because they put in the pistol formation.
It's something
season.
new and exciting,
That's
guys.
Right. It's completely different. Now they run the triple option out of the pistol. It's not any different than what they were doing, but still, it was something.
Right.
Seeing the shotgun at Davis was something unique. So
Sure.
it was really fun. So
But the game that I actually really have circled is Kingfisher and Seminole.
yeah.
And that's another place, Seminole. If you haven't been, I actually covered Kingfisher and Seminole.
Right.
I guess week 6 or 7,
Yeah.
a non-district game in the middle of the season. That's another place. If you haven't been to Seminole, go watch a game there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's an awesome high school football environment. They got a street named after Mike Snyder running alongside the stadium. But that's a game. I mean, these teams have played 4 times in the last.
Yeah, this will be the fourth time
3
in
years?
24 months actually.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
The semifinals in December of 2012, and
Last year
the
too.
semifinals last year,
Right.
regular season this year, and now this one.
So Seminole looking for their first win over them.
That's right.
In
yes.
that stretch.
In that
And
stretch, yeah.
I think when I was there covering that game, it was the week we had all the lightning and the rain and the delays, and so the field was just a mess, and that really played into Kingfisher's hands. They're a little bit more stout on defense and in the running game, whereas Seminole has a really good quarterback in Doc Harvey that can do a lot of different things, throwing the ball. He's got great size. So the weather there, I'm not saying that's why Kingfisher won the game, but it played into what Kingfisher wants to do. So I think Seminole has a chance to win that game in a class that is wide open in Class 3A.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that this is a semifinal game, is a second round game. It's here for a reason because there are so many good teams in this class that have a chance to make some noise. And you wrote. You had the collected wisdom of Mike Snyder. I've long said, I mean, he was one of the first coaches during my first 3 years in this business working in Shawnee. He was one of the first coaches that I really got to know well, and he's always been one of my favorite guys. I'm shocked that he's still coaching at this point, but I love it. I hope he never quits. But talk about Mike and what you like about him.
He was awesome. I mean, he's as good as it gets. If you're a young guy getting into coaching, go read the collected wisdom first of all. I'm gonna give myself a plug here.
That's right.
But because he said a lot of great things about what we need to keep focusing on, as coaches, educators, or people that work with young people in general. And he, the thing to me that really stood out, he didn't really ever call himself. He referred to himself as an educator more than he referred to himself as a coach.
Yeah.
And he said he was almost irritated by the fact, he said, people always ask me, how do I coach kids today? And he was almost kind of act like he's irritated with that question because he said, look, kids are different in that they listen to different music and wearing different clothes, but they still want and need the same things from coaches and educators, and we're here to provide discipline, give every kid a chance. And that's what he's been about at Seminole, and that's why he's been there, 40-something years as an assistant and then as a head coach. He had a bunch of really interesting things to say. Just a great guy and a great coach.
Yeah, it's interesting. I believe it was in your collected wisdom. I'm thinking about things that I've written about him too, but says that he's mellowed over the years, and I would love to see what he was like because he was pretty laid back in 2002 when I first started covering him. I'd like to know what he was like back in the day. I mean, he just seems like such a relaxed guy that he knows how to talk to kids. He doesn't have to get in their face and grab their face mask and yell at them and cuss at them and those kinds of things. Fascinated by the way that he's been able to coach. So we'll see what happens. I wanted to come back around, Jacob, to one thing you were talking about. You mentioned how excited you are about the Lawton Booker T game.
Mm-hmm.
For people in the metro area that are 6A football, big school football fans that are just don't have anybody else left to watch around here at this point. That game's going to be at UConn. It's going to be that'll be a great game to go watch, I think, because there's a lot of D1 talent on the field, and they're playing some serious football in that matchup, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, that's, you're going to get to see probably the best offensive lineman in the state with Jalen Barnett. You're going to see Daryl Patterson. You're going to see all kinds of kids from Booker T. You even get to see a female kicker mixed in there with Caitlin Cox.
That's right.
And it's just going to be, if you saw the game a couple weeks ago against Midwest City with Lawton, I think it's going to be a very similar game. I think it might be low scoring. It's going to be physical. It's going to come down to some final possessions. And like I said, if you're a big school fan, you've got that, and you've pretty much got McAllister, Del City left. That's pretty much your two options in the city at this point. And I would encourage people, if they're looking for a game to go watch, to head out to UConn.
Yep. It's going to be a ball game. Later this week, I'm going to be writing the answer to a trivia question that a lot of people don't know, which is who was the last quarterback from the west side of the state to win a 6A state title over Jinxer Union. So we'll see how that goes. It's funny because you can name, you'll recognize a lot of names off of that Midwest City team from 1995, but not a lot of people know who the quarterback
I
was.
know one on top of my head. That's Justin Meredith. It was a linebacker. He's the Memorial football coach.
That's right.
now.
You had Rodney Rideau, who's had a great career at OU. Vernon Maxwell, who played pro baseball, then came back and played some football. A lot of guys off that team, but not a lot of people realize who the quarterback is and his connection to Mustang football with them still in the playoffs. So you'll have to check out Friday's Oklahoman to find out all about that. That'll do it for this week for the News OK Varsity podcast. Thanks for joining me, guys, and we'll do it again next week. Thanks for listening.